Yes, sir. Welcome back to the Dropping Dimes podcast. And for today's episode, we will be talking about the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, so before I forget, so if you like the videos of the Dropping Dimes podcast, kindly like and share them. And then feel free to also subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you can follow all the episodes of the Dropping Dimes podcast. Okay, so again for today's team preview series, we'll be talking about the San Antonio Spurs and my thoughts and predictions for the upcoming NBA 2020-2021 season. So again, you can, for those who would like to follow us, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as you can see here on my side. So there. You can also follow us on Spotify. There are exclusive episodes on Spotify and also Anchor, such as the Derrick Rose episode, the Loyalty episode. And then, of course, there are also episodes that are exclusively available on YouTube, such as this team preview series. So there you can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and also on Twitter. Okay, so there you go. Let's start now. Okay, this one. There you go. So for the San Antonio Spurs, what are the main storylines? Greg Popovich deciding to come back for another year. DeMar DeRozan, we all thought he would be traded, but he's still with them. LaMarcus Aldridge is also still with them. And then they drafted the shooter from Florida State. This was their lottery pick, Devin Vassell. And then in the second round, they got Duke point guard Trey Jones. Yes, the brother also of Tyus Jones. They were also able to re-sign Jakob Pertl. And they also signed Drew Eubanks. They still have their young core, former first-round pick Derek White, who's starting to really come out of his shell. Same as with Lonnie Walker the fourth, their former first-round pick as well. And they still have Deontay Murray, by the way. You know, it's not like I forgot about him. It's just that the pictures are not available for Deontay Murray. Okay, so let's now go to the stats. So here are the stats of the Spurs. For the first time in 20 plus years, the San Antonio Spurs did not make the playoffs. They were 11th in the Western Conference. They had a 32-39 record. They ended the season with a loss to the Utah Jazz, 112-118. Of course, their coach is still Greg Popovich. Their GM is still R.C. Buford. Now, let's look at the numbers. You know, you would be wondering, for a team who was 8th in scoring, they probably should have made the playoffs, but that's just how tough it is to make the playoffs in the West. This was really the problem. The Spurs have always been known for their defense, but they were only 25th. Their pace was pretty good. They were 14th in the league. Offensive rating, as expected, very high. They were 9th in the league. But again, the defense, that's really been the issue. They were 25th in the league when it comes to their defensive rating. Their expected win-loss last year was 33-38. So for them to go 32-39, you know, they more or less got what super expected of them. But of course, the Spurs, the pedigree, the winning pedigree, the championship pedigree, you always expect them to make it to the playoffs. The attendance, they were only 18th in attendance. So this is the preseason schedule of the San Antonio Spurs. They'll be playing the OKC Thunder at the AT&T Center. Then they'll be going to the Toyota Center. We don't know if James Harden will be there, but definitely John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins will be there waiting for the Spurs. So they'll play 2 games there at the Toyota Center against the Houston Rockets. Now, let's proceed to their key additions. So this is very much like the San Antonio Spurs. Upon looking at their roster, they actually just added Keita Bates-Jobe, who I thought was actually still with the Denver Nuggets. But then he's not with the Spurs. Okay. Then they just drafted the only really key additions. They drafted Devin Vassell from Florida State. He's a great shooter, fits perfectly to the way the game is played right now. And then Trey Jones, even though Trey Jones is regarded as a sort of an old school point guard, but when it comes to his perimeter defense, that is where Trey Jones is really gonna be able to help out. And he's of course a very well-regarded point guard as well. When he came to Duke with guys like Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, and Cam Reddish, teams were just letting Trey Jones shoot all the time because they knew he couldn't make those outside shots. But then a year later, Trey Jones just proved to everyone how much he worked on that shot, and he started knocking them down. Okay, now let's proceed to their key returning players. So this is probably the most key returning players that I've had in the team preview series so far. So they still have DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus Aldridge, Derek White, who's starting to really emerge. DeJounte Murray, coming off the ACL injury. At least he's starting to play, finding himself again. Patty Mills, the veteran, is still there. They're still hoping Lonnie Walker the fourth, their former first-round pick, will still continue developing. Same as with another first-round pick, Keldon Johnson. And they brought back, as mentioned, Jakob Poeltl and Drew Eubanks. They signed them. They still have Trey Lyles and the vet, Rudy Gay. Now let's look at the stats, courtesy of basketballreference.com. Again, for all the latest stats, updated stats, basketballreference.com is the way to go. So let's now go to their team stats. So not surprisingly, they were 8th in points. Yeah, that was their league rank. They also took care of the basketball. They only averaged 12.6 turnovers per game. That is very much how Popovich teams are. And then, surprisingly, they were actually 6th in blocks. They were 15th in rebounds. They were, look at this, 4th in three-point percentage, 5th in field goal percentage. So just by looking at the numbers, you would be wondering, wow, the Spurs didn't make it in spite of those numbers. Yes, because of this, the one at the bottom, their defense. Oh my goodness. It doesn't matter if you score 114, if your opponents are scoring 115, right? You're still gonna lose the game. And look at this. Even if they're shooting the ball pretty well from downtown, they were just 25th when it comes to their opponent's three-point percentage per game. They were 20th when it comes to field goal percentage. So we can easily see that the problem really is on the defensive end. Now let's go to their advanced stats, which will prove further the point. Offensive rating, 9th. Very good. That's elite, top 10 in the league. But defensive rating, 25th. Which is very, very ironic, because Spurs for the past 20 plus years, even during the Tim Duncan, David Robinson years, or the Duncan, Ginobili, Parker years, they were always known for their stingy defense. So for the Spurs to not play or to not even rank top 15 in defensive rating, that's really surprising, and that's also the reason why they didn't make the playoffs. Their pace, as I've mentioned earlier, it's pretty decent. They were 14th. Now let's go to their player stats. Okay, now let's go to their player stats, courtesy of basketballreference.com. So DeMar DeRozan played 68 games for them. He was the one who averaged 22.1 points per game. Pretty decent, 5 boards, almost 6 assists as well. But again, DeMar was never really known for his 3-point shooting, and that of course affects. It doesn't affect his productivity, but probably because of the spacing. But then DeRozan could be the one that would. How would I put it? Maybe draw the defense, and then he can be the one distributing the basketball. Maybe that's the way they can go. It also didn't help that LaMarcus Aldridge was injured. He only played 53 games. He did average 18.9 points and 7.4 rebounds and 1.6 blocks. And we know that Aldridge can also hit the 3 well. Dejounte Murray was pretty good as well. 11 points per game, 6 boards, and 4 assists. Coming off the injury, they lost Bryn Forbes, so they're hoping Devin Vassell can take his place. Derek White, they're hoping also that he would continue developing, especially with Patty Mills already starting to get older. And then Rudy Gay, the veteran, is still with them. He averaged 11 points per game. Now, these are the key players for the Spurs that if they really want to go back or make it back to the playoffs. Keldon Johnson, who showed promise, only played 17 games but did average 9 points per game. Lonnie Walker, who played 61 games, started 12 games, only averaged 6 points per game and 2 boards. Are hoping that these kids, Keldon Johnson, who's only 20, and Lonnie Walker, the fourth, who's only 21, can, come in or find themselves or find more confidence and come into their own, so that they can be, they can really be productive players for them. And then, if you're wondering why they brought back Jakob Poeltl and Drew Eubanks, it's very Greg Popovich to have these kinds of front court players. If you look back, he always had those the Nazi Mohammeds or the Obertos, right? So I think that's really what he sees from Poeltl and Eubanks. That's why even though they do not blow you with their numbers, it's okay. Now, it would also be good if this guy, Lucas Amanich, another draft pick of theirs, can play probably more games than 3 games, and hopefully can, produce numbers as well, slowly but surely. And then they also lost Chimezi Metu, but that's okay because he only averaged 3 points per game. As for Trey Jones, of course, he'll be able to bring his playmaking skills, and more than that, his ability to defend guards. He's really well known for his perimeter defense. Okay, so that's it for the player stats. Let us now proceed to my thoughts and predictions. So, as for my thoughts and predictions for the San Antonio Spurs, and when I was thinking about this, my main concern is this: they had problems defensively last year, and they're bringing back the same team a year older now. Unless they're really hoping that Lonnie Walker, the fourth, will just explode into the scene, that Dejounte Murray will, start playing better than just, coming off the injury. Because, the thing that I'm really worried about is that they added Devin Vassell, who's a shooter, And they added Trey Jones. Yes, he's known for his perimeter defense, but then that's it. They brought back Pirtle. They brought back Eubanks. The very same team that ranked 25th in the league defensively. They always had no problems in scoring, as mentioned earlier. They scored the basketball. They were elite when it comes to their offense. But the defense, that's the concern. And they didn't really do anything to address that problem. They added 2 rookies, re-signed 2 front court players, and that's it. So they're obviously banking on what we call growth from within, or through their player development, that some of these young players, the Keldon Johnsons, the Samanich, the Lonnie Walkers will develop and start playing better basketball and come into their own, right? So those are my thoughts, and that's the reason why I still think the Spurs will not make the playoffs. That they will still be there fighting for the 8th seed. But because the West is just so deep, too many good teams out there in the West, it would be hard for them to make it to the top 16, right? Meaning to the top 8 of the Western Conference. We're not even talking about the top 16 teams in the league. We're just talking about making it to the top 8 in the Western Conference. Will they be able to have a chance to make it as, let's say, their best case scenario? For sure. They can, especially with the play-in tournament, and if they peak right and they're being coached by the best coach in the league right now, and arguably the best coach in the league in Greg Popovich. So there's always a chance, right? I'm not saying they're not going to make it. I just don't know if they have enough, though, to make it. So my predictions for them is that they will still be here where they are, the 30, low 30s kind of team when it comes to their winning, or when it comes to their wins. Maybe a 31, 32, 33 win season, something like that. Unless those guys start coming into their own, and those young players really play well, and Aldridge and DeRozan can coexist as well. No more injuries, and they'll start playing more defense as well. Maybe that's the only way they can get back to the playoffs. So best case scenario, an 8th seed. Worst case scenario for them, a 12th seed in the West. Okay. Yeah, so for our shout outs for today, again, I would like to thank my former classmate and seatmate, Greggy Santos, for always supporting the podcast. Even messaged me on Instagram last night to show support. So salamat. And then salamat, Greggy. Thank you, bro. And then of course, I would also like to thank my former professor, Ma'am Jenny Lazo. She was my former English professor. It means a lot coming from her, showing support as well. Salamat po dun sa comments. And then also to her daughter Lay, for supporting as well the podcast. A very smart young girl and has a bright future ahead of her. And then, of course, thank you also to T-Shirt Printing Manila for the shirt, and also to Yoan Yes for providing us with this Dropping Dimes podcast shirt. And then special shout outs as well to my former co-teachers and super diehard Spurs fans, Sir Paul Lareza, and also to Sir Tonio Borromeo. I was really hoping I could have them as guests for this episode, but they're kind of busy, so it's okay. Super diehard Spurs fans. I hope even if I said that the Spurs might not make it to the playoffs, they will still continue supporting the podcast. Thank you also to Sir John Mermangotara for even if I was brutally honest about his nicks, he was still even sharing the videos. Okay, so may nakalimutan ba? Ayun, thank you also sa mga friends namin sa Instagram. Rated I, Daniel Miles, Aiden Berryman. There's this guy's LeBron is God, So these guys, they are always liking the posts and showing support. So thank you to them as well. Okay, now let's go to this one. So again, before we end the episode, so if you like the video, or you enjoy the episode, kindly like and share the video, and then once we're done, you can or feel free to comment your thoughts about the Spurs or about anything that we can improve on. And then, of course, do not forget to subscribe. Click the subscribe button so that you can follow. And more than that, after subscribing, you can also click on the notification bell so that you can follow all the episodes of the Dropping Dimes podcast. Okay, so with that, we'll see you on the next episode of the Dropping Dimes podcast. This is J.I. Dimes. Keep safe, everyone.